Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. A railroad strike is averted for now after a tentative deal is reached. While union leaders appear pleased with the deal, workers still have to vote on it. President Biden announced the news today from the White House. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports.
After 20 hours at the negotiating table and a heavy lift from the White House, dissatisfied union rail workers and railroad companies reached a tentative deal.
Both business and labor, they worked through this, they worked through the supply, and it's just critical.
A strike would interfere with an already fragile economy and further fuel inflation because prices of all materials that are shipped off by rail could go up. The workers vowed not to strike while the votes are being tallied for their tentative deal. The deal would give rail workers pay raises, 24% over 5 years, plus $5,000 in bonuses. Sick leave was one of the major asks from the workers.
They were making them work too much. They cut their staffing. They ran short-staffed and expected other people to work more than they should have. Our goal was to change that.
The president says he thinks the deal will benefit both workers and companies, allowing them to recruit more workers.
And this is a win for tens of thousands of rail workers and for their dignity and the dignity of their work. It's a recognition of that.
Here we are with just 8 weeks away from the midterms, and this very urgent situation gave the pro-union president a chance to shine. He was personally involved here, giving calls to both the businesses involved as well as the union workers to push them to come to an agreement to avoid a supply chain crisis. But the work is not over yet. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg today committed to keeping the railroads operating smoothly this weekend.
My department continues to work to make sure that any of the impacts on service that happen just from the preparation for the possibility of a shutdown works through the system, and will continue to support rail operators through the weekend.
Amtrak is now scrambling to restore canceled trains. The company says they're, quote, reaching out to impacted customers to accommodate on first available departures. Union workers now have to vote on the deal to prevent a future strike, which could freeze almost 30% of U.S. cargo shipments and cost the economy up to $2 billion per day. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
In other news, dozens of illegal immigrants are in Martha's Vineyard, an upscale island vacation spot in Massachusetts. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis sent 2 planes filled with illegal immigrants to the island last night. DeSantis' campaign team called the region a sanctuary city, while local officials accused Republicans of using human lives as political pawns. Meanwhile, just this morning, Texas Governor Greg Abbott sent 2 buses of illegal border crossers to Vice President Kamala Harris's residence in Washington, D.C. The vice president recently said the border is secure. According to the latest report, illegal immigrants released into the United States are costing taxpayers an additional $20 billion annually. We have R.J. Hauman from the Federation of American Immigration Reform to tell us more about this. R.J. Hauman, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Thank you.
R.J., a new report from your organization, Federation for American Immigration Reform, has revealed that illegal immigrants crossing the border will cost American taxpayers over $20 billion per year. Tell us how you guys came to this number.
Yeah, just again, the Biden border crisis has driven more illegal aliens into our country, and the American taxpayer is really bearing the brunt of this. And what we did is we easily kind of combined all of the illegal aliens who have been released into the country or avoided Border Patrol. They're called gotaways. Came to about 2.3 million, and we went back to our cost study methodology that several years ago found that American taxpayers pay $140 billion every year for the legal aliens that are currently in the United States. And it's about $9,000 per illegal alien that costs the American taxpayers. And the number we came up with, $20.4 billion. So add that on to the 140 or so, and you're at around 160. The American taxpayers pay $160 billion a year. And we also kind of looked at some comparisons. I mean, that would provide every homeless veteran $50,000 a year for a decade. It would give every needy family in the United States earning $50K or less, you could give them a grocery voucher. You could do 315,000 police officers, 330,000 teachers. But instead, the Biden administration is giving all that money to illegal aliens.
That's an excellent point. I mean, at what point do we have to take a step back and ask what could that money be used for to actually help these Americans that are struggling, because there are many?
Well, and if you look at what the Biden administration says, is that of one side of Joe's mouth, he's a blue-collar man, respects the American worker. But all this money's going to illegal aliens. They're the top priority. They're living on a different planet. As you saw, Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday said they're doing better on border security than the Trump administration was. I mean, they are an absolute la-la land. They do not care about addressing the crisis. Even Kamala Harris, in her interview with Chuck Todd on Sunday, she said the border is secure and then immediately pivots to amnesty for every illegal alien in the country. That's the only solution when it comes to immigration in their eyes. Taking care of those who are currently here illegally and those who haven't even got here yet. They want to keep the border open and give amnesty to every illegal alien in the country.
RJ, what type of resources do you think it would take to actually secure the border?
Oh, it's going to take a whole lot more, and it's going to take, this is why Republicans, if they take back one or both chambers of Congress, they're going to have a mandate to secure the border. And, got to do a big messaging bill, obviously, out the gate with complex statutory changes. You can't just build a wall. A wall is helpful, but you got to actually change the laws and kind of close these loopholes that the Biden administration's ignoring. But it's a kind of a three-pronged solution that we have that we've been relaying on Capitol Hill. You pass a border security bill out the gate. You do aggressive oversight. You potentially impeach Mayorkas. Republicans had a select committee on Benghazi. Do a select committee on the border crisis. And number three, which I think is most important, properly control the purse strings. Do not give the Department of Homeland Security a blank check to keep processing migrants, keep our borders open. Make sure every dollar you give them is actually doing the functions of the agency and why it was created, to keep our homeland and our borders secure.
RJ, what do you say to the argument that says these stances are anti-immigrant?
They're not anti-immigrant. They're pro-national sovereignty. They're respecting the security of our borders and again, protecting public safety. Okay, it has nothing to do with people coming up here. If you're a true asylum seeker or a refugee and you're fleeing a country, the moment you get across the border of your nation, you're supposed to be safe, you're secure. These people are simply country shopping migrants. They're coming here to work and to send money back home. What's the risk? What's the trade-off, though? By keeping our borders open and essentially having all Border Patrol officers simply processing migrants, cartels and smugglers are able to smuggle in criminals and lethal narcotics that are harming American communities. You got to remember, the American people are the key stakeholder when it comes to immigration policy, not prospective immigrants or those who are currently here illegally. Got to look out for them first.
RJ Hauman, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Former President Trump warns of big problems if he's indicted. This as Democrats condemn threats against the FBI. Here's the details.
I think they'd have big problems. Big problems.
Former President Trump discusses what would happen if he were indicted for allegedly mishandling classified documents.
I think if it happened, I think you'd have problems in this country, the likes of which perhaps we've never seen before. I don't think the people of this country would stand for it, especially since they know I'm totally innocent.
Trump, speaking Thursday to conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt, adds that such a development would not stop him from running again for president.
And as you know, if a thing like that happened, I would have no prohibition against running. You know that.
The Justice Department is investigating if Trump improperly stored classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago home. Trump says the documents were declassified. Meanwhile, hours after Trump's Thursday comments, the Democratic chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee calls Trump's rhetoric dangerous.
His careless and inflammatory rhetoric has its consequences. Inviting the mob to return to the streets is exactly what happened here January 6, 2021.
The senator also notes a rise in threats against law enforcement.
And I will just tell you, it was stunning, the number of threats that have been cataloged and indexed since the August 8th search at Mar-a-Lago.
Meanwhile, asked if his remarks are inciting violence, Trump says,
"It's not inciting. I'm just saying what my opinion is. I don't think the people of this country would stand for it."
Reporting by Iris Tao, NTD News.
Primaries are over and midterms are just around the corner. 9 states are beginning in-person early voting this month, and North Carolina has already begun sending out mail-in ballots. North Carolina officials sent out mail-in ballots on Tuesday, and the very next day, post offices started receiving the completed forms back. Pennsylvania will start in-person early voting on September 19th, while South Dakota, Wyoming, Minnesota, Vermont, and Virginia all begin September 23rd and 24th. But over in Delaware, mail-in voting may not be an option anymore this election cycle. A state court ruled yesterday that mail-in voting violates the state constitution. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.